How would you feel if people arrested for domestic violence had to register like sex offenders do? Arrested doesn't mean convicted. Surely you meant convicted, right? Oh, yeah, I meant convicted. I caught a DV charge for beating up my stepdad after he beat my handicapped mother. Luckily for me, the charge was reduced, but not everyone who gets that charge is a woman beater. It basically ruined my life at the time, and if I was treated like a sex offender on top of it all, I probably wouldn't have made it to today. Similar experience here. I was charged with aggravated domestic for allegedly beat my brother so bad he was hospitalized for 3 days. Sounds pretty awful, right? He came to my home with a pistol and his girlfriend while my wife was there alone. The girlfriend came to record our interaction. He wanted me to attack him. He called me at work threatening me and my wife. I left work and spent 45 minutes begging, pleading, trying to reason with him that we were brothers and the silliness he was upset about would all be a distant memory one day and that it wasn't worth tearing two brothers apart. I have no recollection of the events that followed. But I was arrested. Months later in court, we looked so stupid, two grown men of close age and stature, one asking for an order of protection. In hindsight, I should have called the cops on him. But at the time I thought I could reason and keep the law out of a family matter. Oh well. I feel for you there. Glad you're safe. I hope your brother got some help too. Sounds like he might have needed a little professional assistance. Thank you. We both could have used some good family counseling. Domestic abuse survivor here. My biggest regret was not talking to a school psychologist when I was in high school. At the time, I half expected to hear the same bullcrap my family members told me. I'm sorry that this happened to you. Glad you and your wife are safe. If someone showed up at my house with a gun while my wife was there alone, I would also beat them so badly that my mind didn't want to remember it as well. That's not domestic violence at that point. Yeah, it's self-defense. Someone brandishing a firearm is a threat to your life. Not only that, for entering someone's house brandishing a firearm, the brother is a felon who should never be allowed near a gun for the rest of his life. He has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he is definitely not a responsible gun owner. I caught one from removing my mom from my apartment during a psychotic episode. Definitely ruined my life, and I'm unable to deal the record for another 5 years. Same here. In my state it's permanent, so my life ended in one night. A cop literally went back in and sold her on the charge, after I was told I could go. Haven't spoken in 11 years. Will never again. This is a good point as to why in theory these registers make sense, but in reality they're harmful because there are a lot of people who get wrongfully convicted of crimes. Frankly, this is the only reason why I'm against the death penalty. I really absolutely don't care if a murderer/child predator gets put to death. It's the fact that our justice system is broken and there's a chance an innocent person can get put to death that bothers me, which has effing happened. The state shouldn't have that kind of power if the system is corrupt. And since every justice system is ultimately run by humans and human codes of ethics, it means that no system of justice is unfallible. Innocent people will always keep getting convicted, no matter what. It's impossible to eliminate false positives. Using a single label to ostracize and punish people for a variety of different crimes is never a good idea for exactly this reason. I've only known one person on the sex offender registry, and that fact has ruined his life. What heinous crime against humanity did he commit? Public urination. I agree. A drunk guy taking a piss in an alley or parking lot is a far different thing than molesting a child or raping someone. Yet somehow they both get the same treatment. As an old bastard, I can attest that in the 70s mooning people was pretty common. Not sure it's a good idea to burden a young adult who pressed their butt cheeks against a car window when passing by a buddy with a lifetime on a sex offender registry. Who benefits from that? Other geriatrics like me can imagine the impact of a sex offender registry during the streaker craze. I'll hazard a guess that we'd be without some of our boomer senators and congressmen, and women. Same here. I know a guy that foolishly flashed somebody in his teens and is 50 now and still registered over 30 years later with no other convictions. The annoying part is that laws like that are enacted retroactively. He is on the same list as people who have physically raped other people, and I think that is foolish. That's my biggest concern with lists such as these. Often legal definitions of crimes are broad enough that even if someone did actually commit such a crime, there can be a huge variation in severity. Sex offenders can be anything from streakers and public urinators to rapists and child molesters. It's a very broad category, and the same is true of people convicted of domestic violence charges. They might be a wife bearer, or they might have beaten up their stepdad for beating their mother, or they might be totally innocent and be convicted because that happens too. My best friend in high school got arrested for statutory rape when he was 17 because his 15-year-old girlfriend had gotten pregnant the day before her 16th birthday. They used the doctor's estimate and some communications to determine it was then, because the next day it wouldn't have been a crime. Meanwhile, they got married shortly after the baby was born and things worked out well for them. Except he was on the sex offender registry for almost 15 years until he was able to find a lawyer who helped him get removed. Was the prosecutor the one who decided to not let this case go? Did they need a win that bad? I've worked with many prosecutors. I would say about 95% decide to pursue a case based on one thing and one thing only. Do they think they can win? Yeah, I've heard stories of 17-year-olds sending nudes to their same-aged boyfriend/girlfriend, and the parents find out, press charges, and the kid ends up on a sex offender registry. And then there's scum like rapist Brock Turner, who originally got only 6 months jail time because his father argued it wasn't fair to ruin his life over 5 minutes of fun. Not just that, his sentence was reduced because it would affect his professional sports career. I mean, convicting a successful athlete? We don't do that, that's un-American. Actually, the father of Brock Turner, the rapist, called it 5 minutes of action when his son raped an unconscious woman. I didn't know that could happen. My brother attacked me with a machete years ago when we were sharing an apartment together, and I was surprised at the time to learn that what he didn't count as DV. Specifically, the police officer I spoke to told me that he couldn't be charged with any form of DV because domestic violence requires a romantic relationship between the attacker and victim. Now I'm wondering if that guy was full of crap. My boyfriend caught a DV charge for slamming a door on his mom's hand, no injuries. He was trying to keep her in her room since she was drunk and trying to hit him and me. Even though the cops have extensive records of calls from his family against the mom, it was my boyfriend who got in trouble. The charges got dropped eventually when she stopped showing up to court, but still. I got a domestic battery charge after slapping my significant other once because he got drunk after I found out he was cheating, and he flipped tables, threw crap into the wall hard enough to leave holes, smashed the TV, and sprayed liquor all over a very pregnant me. I was in jail for 2 days, and it's basically destroyed my career. Wow. This system really can't do anything right, huh? That's all public record. Not the same as the sex offender registry, though. The sex offender registry needs a change, though. You can get on it if you are caught peeing near a school at 3 a.m. in July. In college, a buddy of mine and I got caught peeing outside a Taco John's. We were both underage and drunk. Somehow we both only got fines. The cops were super nice, and my buddy was crying because the cops called his mom since he was 17 and not legally an adult. He skipped 3rd grade. We definitely dodged a bullet there. But to your point, this kind of offense shouldn't put someone on the sex offender list. Taco John's. Dang, you probably went to college in the middle of nowhere, right? Madison, Wisconsin. You probably weren't the first underage drunk kids to be caught peeing around at Taco John's. I have had to pee in some bush while in some suburban LA strip. I was in a rental, was driving through LA on a Saturday. This was before GPS was widespread, and I don't know the area. I don't know how, but I had driven almost 30 minutes without finding a gas station nor any mall where I can find a toilet. At that point I only had 2 choices left. Pee in a bottle or in a bush, and I don't have a bottle. Somehow I found some deserted building where there is a largish bush and was concealed from the main road. At this point, the dam was ready to break. After a cursory check that the coast is clear, I unleashed a torrent in those bushes for 30 straight seconds. Someone honked behind me but didn't do anything further than that. I quickly finished my business and went about my way. So yeah, this is my confession on my last public urination. In my plea, I was under extreme duress and wasn't able to find a proper toilet. It was my fault for not going in the numerous rest stops along the I-5, as I arrogantly thought that I can hold it in until I refuel in LA. And oh yeah, Of course, I ran across a gas station just 1 block away after I get back on the road. Why is peeing in a bush so socially unacceptable all of a sudden? I have done it so many times, I just make sure nobody sees my dick. There are a lot of people on the sex offender registry who did things that any reasonable person would not consider a crime, much less a sex offense. Some were minors at the time. Maybe where you live it is. Access to those records vary by province in Canada. Also, to the best of my understanding, past convictions for domestic assault cannot be referenced in new cases. So serial abusers get to beat their merry way through life. My spouse still suffers severe PTSD from a man she dated briefly 10 years ago. Sorry about your spouse. Previous convictions can and are used as part of the pre-sentencing report. That would be absolutely absurd for any repeat offender of any type of crime to be allowed to have their previous convictions sealed. This is part of the Canada Evidence Act. Further, Section 12 of the Canada Evidence Act permits the Crown Attorney to cross-examine the accused, questioning them on any previous convictions. A criminal record is always admissible, and when the accused is found guilty, the pre-sentencing report will list all previous convictions, and even previous arrests that led to no convictions. A pre-sentencing report is very thorough. There is some very fine print on what is deemed a record, but basically anything that has been made with the intention that it serve as a permanent record is admissible. This is going to be an unpopular opinion. But I am not a fan of offender lists. Especially beyond the sentence of the person who was convicted of a crime. Hear me out before you get your pitchforks. If someone is convicted of a crime and is sentenced to 5 years in prison, then that is already public record and will remain public record, assuming no expunction, for the duration of their sentence. If they are let out on parole after serving 2 and have parole for another 3, then I am more okay with the idea of an offender list. After all, you should be on your best behavior on parole. But I can't get on board with, after serving your sentence, to still be on some list. If you are a danger to society to the point that you have to register on a list for the rest of your life, then you don't need to be on the streets. If you are safe enough to be released from jail/prison and have finished your sentence, then that should be it. Honestly, I am almost a fan of only having your criminal record available in very limited circumstances, not to the public or to employers, once your sentence is complete. Edit, beat behavior to best behavior. Sorry, autocorrect at 2 a.m. Obviously it's different in the US, but in Ireland the list is for police, not the public. Offenders have to notify of their address and get visits from police. In addition, to work with kids you need police vetting, and that won't be granted if you're on the list. Yeah. I agree, if you're still a danger, a list isn't enough of a solution, and if you're not, why are you even on a list? For example, if a pedophile is still a threat, they should either still be locked up, or at least heavily monitored, for example tagged or something. I'd say the same with the next extension of that, the cannot live within X feet of a school /park etc. thing many states do. People think that sounds fine, but when you actually map that out, that often leaves almost nowhere for them to legally live. So you often end up with big clusters of them living in the same crappy rundown hotel. I'd agree to that, but the prison system must be reformed so that instead of treating people worse than battery farmed hens, they follow a more Nordic model and actually rehabilitate people. Also, the plea deal system in the US is goddamn disgusting, as is cash bail. It's not a justice system, it's a lock up people so private enterprise profit system. Meanwhile, the actual offenders walk off thanks to the good old boy corruption. What if the conviction is a plea deal because the person was poor, and had a public defender that spent a whole 30 minutes with them? It's not fixing the root cause. The root causes are: people stay out of fear, dependence on the abuser, inability to recognize abuse, disability, lack of resources, low self-esteem. Basically, you could end domestic abuse entirely if you empowered abusers financially and with mental health care. But mental health care is bananas expensive, and having to work 60 hours per week if you don't already to try and get back on your feet, or being homeless, is a huge disincentive. We live in a society that puts those people in the situation where they cannot seek help or get out because they lack the resources to do so, and until you fix that, everything else is a band-aid. Web link. I'm showing this to everyone who says I just don't understand why they stay with them when talking about another situation. So well put. I used to be one of those people. One of the ones that said, "Why can't you just leave?" Until I was in an abusive relationship. I realized pretty quickly that it's not that simple. I still feel guilty for ever judging people for staying in abusive relationships and not just leaving. It's hard to understand if you've never been in that situation. In my case, he told me he would kill me if I tried to leave, and I believed him. I received death threats daily when I did leave, and I'm sure he would have carried them out if he had the opportunity. I really think that a lot of what's needed is education. People need to be aware of resources they can use to get away from abusive spouses if needed, women's/men's shelters, laws in their area, how to file a restraining order. Education about the cycle of abuse is also important. It took me being in an abusive relationship for 5 years and a couple more years of rumination and therapy before I realized that I was in an abusive relationship. Like a textbook example. It is a weird, complex issue. If anything, it put a more human face on it. Granted, abuse can't be tolerated, but abusers are damaged too and often have no idea what they are doing as well. It's sad. This is important, but it still puts the emphasis of getting out on the abused party. Abusers are good at what they do. Victims are often incapable of even looking for help. And leaving an abuser is a dangerous process, which regularly leads to increased abuse, death threats, murder. Yes, put those safeguards in place. But also, let people be warned if they are about to embark on a relationship with someone who has abused past partners. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.